The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Sakach here again with my co-host, Mike Liwski, and our special guest today. So Gallup's latest research shows that only 33% of employees strongly agree they feel connected to their company's mission. That disconnect impacts not only engagement, but also profitability and innovation, as we know. The companies that thrive in today's world are the ones that build communities where people feel seen and valued. Today, we explore how community and connection can drive both human and business success. Mike, introduce our guest today.
Well, it'll be my absolute pleasure, Stephen. Yes, so our guest today is Mark Van Wy. He is the CEO of Zoom Room. It's the innovative indoor dog training gym that is transforming the pet service industry. And Mark, with a background spanning education, neuroscience, and franchise development, Mark is really known for building purpose-driven organizations, which we love to talk about here, really where relationships come first. As well as under his leadership, Zoom Room has become one of the fastest growing franchise systems in the country by combining dog training, human connection, and community building, which we'll talk a lot about today. All of those, he's put those into one cohesive experience. So we can't wait to hear more about how you've done that, Mark. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it. It's I know on paper we're a dog training company, but the reality is it's community infrastructure. Our motto is we don't train dogs, we train the people who love them. So it's right in our name. I didn't wear one, but our staff shirts actually say love unconditionally on them. Oh. And I think we started off recognizing that people don't really want a trained dog anymore. What they want is a socialized dog. That's what people want in their lives. And you get that through community. So it's really, really integral to what we're all about.
That's awesome. I'd love to get a shirt. Hopefully we can. That's awesome.
I love that. Putting love front and center right there on the shirts and everything.
Absolutely.
So Mark, so this research from Deloitte shows that companies with a strong sense of purpose outperform competitors by 42% in growth and employee engagement. So how does purpose show up in the way you've built the Zoom Room?
It's, 15 years ago, we'd be having a conversation about how dogs are now part of the family and people treat their dogs like children. But that's really not the story anymore. While that's still true, people now choose where they're going to live, where they're going to work, where they're going to travel, where they go out for a beer based on dog friendliness. And it's really
100%. I'm going through this right now. Like where I'm looking for apartments and stuff. And I'm literally in Google looking around for the dog area right in the neighborhood. I mean, it's absolutely, I'm like, why? This is totally different for me than before.
Absolutely. And just because someone says you can bring your dog to work doesn't mean you should or that you feel comfortable doing it. And you may want to run into a store and grab a pair of headphones or something, but what do you do? And there's this moment when you come home with your dog where you have this dream and this vision of what that's going to be like in your life and your family's life, and the reality hits you pretty soon. And it just fills you with so much anxiety and really stress, and things don't work out the way that you thought it would be. And going for a walk, going outside becomes so stressful. So for us, this mission of reconnecting people with that moment they first had, building that self-confidence, building back that just sense of belonging to and their sense of family, that's really what we're about. So we're really improving the world one relationship, one family, one neighborhood at a time, and helping people interact better that way. So it really, I think, is critical to our country's infrastructure and comes down to just who's living in your home and where you're living.
That is a massive impact when you put it like that, Mark. That's never really thought about it that way. Maybe delving in, because it sounds like this point of connection then is a real competitive advantage for Zoom Room. So I'm curious, can we delve a little bit deeper into how you say intentionally created community across your franchise network, while still, I guess, trying to maintain some consistency across the brand?
It's a great question, because a lot of times people hear franchise and you think cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, because restaurants get Michelin stars for consistency, right? Consistency, cookie cutter is not bad. Like, you want to know that the cruller that you get in Boston is going to be the cruller you get in North Carolina. So we have that aspect of consistency in our business, but there's always room to play. So for example, Friday night is not a big dog training night. Saturday's night's not, but they're fine for dancing. They're fine for doggy disco. They're fine for fundraisers for your local dog rescue or shelter. And this is where individual franchisees can really tap into their community. So let's just say your community is super into comedy. You can have stand-up comedy night with your dog, or movie night with your dog. We've had pajama parties with your dog, wine and painting night with your dog, local music acts with your dog, and really any chance. And people will sometimes say, but what did the dogs get out of it? And the answer is everything, because the way you get the socialized dog is exposure to novel stimuli, exposure to lots of people, lots of dogs in a safe place with things going on where it's all cool, it's all good, and they're having a great time. That's how they become so stable and non-reactive. So yeah, the people have a great time, and without really doing anything, they go home and they're like, my dog is better behaved, my dog is more mellow and chill. And that gives each franchisee a chance to really put their own stamp and their own flavor on that aspect of the business. So I think sometimes it's those fundraisers and special events that are like that icing on the cake.
Got it. Okay, well, that's a great model, right? Because you leave them a little bit of freedom in doing those locally, but still achieving that same goal and building that connection. So that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah. What kind of systems? So you got the freedom, like we're talking about. Then what kind of systems or rituals kind of have helped Zoom Room stay true to its purpose as it grows?
I think part of it is just the scaffolding of a support network. So making sure that every single franchisee has constant touch points, that there's always an opportunity to showcase franchisees, to bring people together into network-wide calls, to break off into smaller breakout groups, that every unit has a dedicated person they can call anytime, and who's also proactively checking in. In franchising, some of the things that people love the most for this, that, or the other concept often came not from corporate, but from a franchisee who's living and breathing this reality every moment of every day with thousands and hundreds of thousands of clients. And so, you think of like Sonic's ice cream shakes. That was a franchisee who came up. They didn't used to do that. Or the McNuggets. And for us, sometimes some of our pricing models, some of the things we do were ideas that a franchisee came up with. And by listening to them and seeing what they're doing a little bit differently, rather than a slap on the wrist, it's let's just see, maybe they've got something here, and then finding a way to bring that in. But I think it's just the communication that makes all the difference, is knowing that there's always standing weekly or biweekly or monthly different touch points. And then also you can break that at any moment by just also reaching out.
So you've got like the sort of standing meetings where, it's a safe place where people can bring up these ideas. Because it's really hard it is a challenge for a lot of franchises to get that, I don't know, is that a trickle up effect to to get that kind of feedback from, the front line, so to speak, so that everyone else can kind of take advantage of it. And of course, some franchises don't want any of that and will really be actively, against any sort of new, thing going on at the local level.
There's always carrots and there's always sticks in franchising, especially sticks. And what we have always done, keep in mind that we don't just do dog training, we do positive reinforcement only. It's the only thing we do. And the positive reinforcement suffuses how we treat our franchisees, how we treat everybody. It is everything that we do. It's our entire ethos. And so when you look at how that works, it really helps inspire how we approach how we approach vetting of ideas. And it I think creates an atmosphere where people can share like that.
Yeah,
Amazing.
we talk about positive reinforcement, but this is kind of an emotional intelligence, right? This is kind of, a skill that leaders really should be cultivating as well. So thinking about that, what role has empathy played in how you lead your organization and your franchise partners?
We're really a teaching business, and I have a background in education, and there's this concept called the curse of knowledge that I think is one of the most important roots of empathy. And in curse of knowledge, the idea is that you might be an expert in something, but if you know it so well, you're completely incapable of having the perspective taking to think of what it was like when you didn't know that. And so you're unable to teach someone else. And so you have to learn to adopt a practice of the default state is confusion, to adopt this beginner's mind. So if I'm teaching someone else, or teaching someone to teach someone else, or teaching someone to teach someone to teach a franchisee, to teach a trainer, to teach a client, to teach their dog, all the way down, you have to always come from a place not of authority or expertise, but of almost distracted confusion, where you can never lose touch with what that was like. I think that's critical to good teaching and communication. But we also have such a charged atmosphere. I think, stress is just an outcome, but it has to come from somewhere. And one of the places it can come from is fear and anxiety. It can come from shame and embarrassment, and having, I almost said children as a slip. Children or pets can be a huge source of embarrassment. So I think another part of empathy for us is psychological safety. Is when you come in, you're probably going to be embarrassed to tell us what your dog did. And to make that feel very safe and judgment-free, and to even use things like affect labeling, so that when we're communicating with you, we're calling out what the feeling is that you're saying. And it takes away the judgment and lets you feel a lot more open and able to share. And because we're not working one-on-one, we're in a group, it becomes like a mommy and me type atmosphere. So when you say, my puppy kept me up all night, or I tried everything, but my dog keeps peeing in the house or whatever, you're among people that are very, very supportive, and we make it very safe for you to deal with that. And there's a great release that comes as people see their often rescued dogs become friendly and no longer be, because we're just such ego-driven people, humans, and it's hard not to be embarrassed when your dog barks at the delivery person or growls at someone in the street. We feel it is a huge judgment against ourselves, and it feels awful. And so we want to recognize that people sometimes come to us with awful feelings, and we're there to make them go away.
Yeah. I love that. I was just talking to another business owner probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they own a gym, right? And we were talking about, they kind of have the same sort of thing with, someone walking by the gym, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go because I'm not quite in shape yet to handle it. And there's this, they're like, no, this is, we definitely want to meet them there in this kind of psychological safe place. And it's a really tricky kind of hurdle to overcome, and kind of show that you're, this friendly place that, no, this is exactly the type of person or dog that should be coming in here. This is what we're here for. And I love that. Yeah, if you don't have that empathy for this, you're not going to pick up on that big mind shift change that needs to happen. Right? And so how do you, just diving a little deeper into that, what do you guys actively do to really encourage, that type you are? That type of
to encourage person. The sharing or the, I think having the love unconditionally shirts helps as a first signal that it's not just
no judgment, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it gives people that sense, and you're around. We use a type of training that we really pioneered called levels training, where instead of it being like, come 6 weeks in a row every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., regardless of where you're at, you may finish sooner or later. What we do is something where you can drop in and out, come as often as you want, come at different times, more like you would at like a yoga studio. but you're always with people that are at the same level as you. So when you kind of level up based on criteria, you are going into like a different cohort. And as a result, it means you're always around like-minded people. And I think that you just get that right away. And our trainers we don't hire people who are, have long expertise in dog training. And we hire people who are people, whose expertise is being really, really good at being outgoing, connecting, warm, good communicators. A lot of dog trainers per se are people who like to work one-on-one with a dog and don't necessarily know how to communicate. Whereas when we all think of like our favorite teachers we've ever had, they're the ones, or as parents, the ones who not just say like, oh, I noticed that your daughter did this. I think she's doing that because, and they're diagnosticians. They can explain things. And that's actually one of the other things. So we take away the sting of embarrassment by naming what the thing is and explaining it. And the reason that she's peeing in the house, not the daughter, the dog, is because of X. And you back it up to like, this is why dogs do what they do. Let me explain to you animal behavior. And when you see see what's going on right now with her ears, that means this. And she does this because of this. And you can actually control her arousal level by doing this, because if she's over threshold of her arousal, this tends to happen. But if you can reduce that, and it all becomes rational, it all becomes understandable, and you realize this is not something so beyond your control. This is something you can control and something you can take a great active part in. That's, I think, an important gift too.
Yeah, and
I want to maybe take a quick step back here, because what you were talking about earlier. I've got this saying that I've always used, let structure do the heavy lifting. And you put a lot of, components in place there to sort of support, what you're talking about. But I was really hoping to be able to get to this question around connection, because there had to be at some point a very mindful decision that you made as a founder, as an owner, to make kind of connection a central part of this philosophy. So tell us a little bit, I guess, like what inspired making connection such a central component to that.
We're not about dogs or pets. We are, most pet businesses in the industry focus on the pet. We're about the bond between the owner and the dog. And so the connection's right there. It is, we teach you loose leash walking. That feeling you get, people who ride horses know this too. There's just this touch that you get that goes both ways. It's almost like an electricity of communicating. Therapy dog training is a big part of what we do, which also impacts the whole community. And a lot of people think there's such a thing as a therapy dog. There isn't. There's no such thing. It's a therapy dog team. You and your dog together have to be certified. If you're not there, your wife can't fill in for you. It's just you and your dog. And agility training is one of the things we're most known for. If I think of what is the greatest form of connection in the world, it's probably like dance at the highest level, right? It's wordless, and there's distance. We don't have a leash between us, right? There's just air, but with just looks, we can communicate and follow each other's moves. And that's what agility is. You, the human, are the only one who hears me, the person, the trainer, say, you're going to jump through this tire, then go through that tunnel, then come back through the tunnel, then go over this. The dog doesn't understand that, but the dog knows how to navigate it. And then I say go, and the two of you together have to run this course with you never once stopping stride, just giving the slightest gestures. And you watch the dogs do this. It's not your dog. It's you and your dog together. And why would you do this? You don't have to care about agility. You're not going to go on ESPN. It's because you go home and you find now your dog is just so keyed into you and you into your dog. The very first thing we teach is watch me, is just your dog learning that your face and your voice are the most important thing. So when something else is distracting, there's just always this rooting back to you. So I think if you really, really, really want to tackle the problem of, or the question of, how can we live with another species, right? It's like what every sci-fi movie is about. Dogs are not little fur babies. They're not children. They're not stand-ins for humans. They are a weirdly different, completely other. They're going to live with us and be a huge part of our lives. Someone has to bridge that communication. And we're going to be the Jodie Foster in Contact. That's what Zoom Room is going to be. And that is just connection, all the way down. So we could not have started Zoom Room without it being all about connection. Is my answer.
That's it. Yeah, that's certainly a great point. As you were sort of talking about, I was thinking, not only do dogs need this, it sounds like you could probably expand into humans as well. So Mark, for those that follow us and you may listen to this later, we get a lot of business leaders who sometimes are struggling, and maybe someone like yourself could give them some suggestions. What advice would you give emerging leaders about building this connection, like building empathy into their business? Because it's kind of thought of as like this soft skill, right? And what's the ROI behind empathy is kind of one of the criticisms sometimes of conscious capitalism. So just sort of what advice would you give to those to really put an emphasis on connection and empathy in their business?
I mean, the ROI for us is not hard to calculate. I mean, besides the fact, I can start off with, more than a third of our business comes from word of mouth referrals. Mm-hmm. So you picture the flywheel that we've created. You come in with your dog. We train you in your dog. Your dog's awesome. You go walking down the street. You're the one dog at the dog park who's acting great. Everyone's going to come up to you like, right. Oh my God, where did you get that awesome sweater? Right? This is how another business can do it. Your dog is amazing. How did your dog learn how to do that? I can't, but why everyone else? Oh, I go to the Zoom Room, right? And so it builds there. The barista says like, your dog is really, really well behaved. Congratulations. Yeah. Oh, I do that at Zoom Room. So it spreads. And you get that, even if you're not out doing all your grassroots marketing, which you should be, having those customers go out, bringing that into the world. If it's a business where there's no way to manifest it into the community, it becomes a lot harder. But that pays back so quickly because that becomes the thing that other people are envious of and other people really, really desire and want. They see it, it's doable. And it gives them a sense of happiness, I think, to know that that is something attainable to them, to see dogs that are behaved well in public places. I think that's part of it. The second thing is like really, really know your numbers. I mean, figure out if you know what your cost is to acquire a customer, and a lot of that is through omni channels that are often have large paid components. If you just start to work out a pro forma of like, what if my word of mouth, what if my client referrals numbers went up? Well, those are all zero cost, remember. Look at what that starts to do to your CAC, and then you start looking at retention. So what's the churn in my business? For us, we have an 87% retention rate. We have an NPS score of 90. We even track the early velocity. We track how much money we generate per customer within the first 8 weeks, because you can't just look at lifetime value. What if it takes you years to do that? How are you funding your marketing funnels, right? Yeah. So we even keep track of all of those points. And if we are able to achieve a 25-to-1 ratio from our lifetime value to our cost to acquire a customer. That's phenomenal. Yep. But we're doing that because we're actually following every one of these junctures. Where do people drop off? Where do people stay in? If you're just starting off in your example, then you're not going to have a pool of data. I have tons of data from 60 plus stores around the country. I can suck in and do linear regressions and learn all sorts of stuff. You just started your one store. What I'd say is pick up the phone and call people, talk to them on the phone. Look, no heavy pressure, but I noticed you came and you didn't stay. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to grow my business. I'm just a person trying to sell whatever's. What was it? Like, what could have been different? Just, don't offer anything. Don't ask for it. Just have those conversations. You'll learn so much by those who chose to stay or chose to come back or chose to upsell, and the ones who didn't. And then you'll get enough to form a thesis of what you could do differently for your next iteration, and then run with that for a while and rinse and repeat until the point that you're so big that you've got all this data you can sit on and you can let wonks like me crank through them and see patterns.
That's such a great piece of advice. I love that you mentioned, CAC and lifetime value, because I do think, that's probably, the crown jewel of metrics, right? Is keeping that CAC over lifetime value below 1 is so critical. But I'm sure with those phone calls and reaching out to the ones that didn't stay, chances are you might even, turn some of those individuals around to where, they might even end up referring folks to you, because an extension of a call like that means so much to someone. So Mark, one of the segments we love to talk about here on our show is around purpose. We talk, a great amount about, being purpose driven. And in fact, recently McKinsey had put out a report that found that 70% of customers are more loyal to brands, obviously, right? That they, foster a sense of community that they feel connected to. So tell us, maybe a little bit about, what's your purpose, there at Zoom Room, and then how has community, really impacted Zoom Room's growth and your retention?
I mean, a lot of it is in the numbers I just mentioned. So it's having a retention score that's that high and an NPS score like that shows that I know those numbers means that we care about those numbers. Right. It means that we're tracking them. And the fact that, I remember we first came out with these bandanas that say love unconditionally. These orange is the color of animal rescue. And some of our franchisees said, but they don't say Zoom Room on them. I don't understand. And I said, just trust me, because the thing is they're beautiful and they're a strong message, and people come up to people whose dogs have them and say, that's so cool. Where did you get that? And they have what? A conversation, right?
Yeah.
And, a lot of people never have noticed that when you go to Whole Foods, there's no aisle numbers. Like, that was by design. There's no aisle numbers in Whole Foods because when you say, where's the whatever, they don't say aisle 7. They say, let me show you. Oh, and what are you making tonight? Oh, you are? That's, what we also need? And you're having a relationship and you're having an experience. We try to do as much of that too. That's how you start to build connection. So yes, I didn't put a Zoom Room logo on our bandanas that we give to our customers to put on their dogs. It's okay. It's very, very intentional, and it helps to build that. We also do a lot of things like taking part in, community events, whether it's not just the pet events, but if there's like a breast cancer fund or run or event like that, anything that's going on in the community, it's really important for us to give back and to show up. And is really the only indoor space that you can host a gala and bring your dogs. We try to make ourselves available for as much of that as possible, as well as doing pro bono work with all the local shelters.
All right, we've got an audience question here. Let's bring that up, see what they have to say here. So this is from a LinkedIn user. Mark, what's one simple habit leaders can start practicing to build a more connected team?
Some of one of the things when I first saw the question, my first thought was, get off of Zoom and video and do something in person. Have a shared experience together that's away from the thing. I know in today's world that's easier to say than do. There are so many people working remotely, working through different offices, and that's not always possible. So to the extent I think that people can connect over something other than the thing at hand, I just find that the best breakthroughs that I have seen have happened we have annual conventions, and people are just playing cornhole together, outside. All of a sudden, oh, that's our CMO, or that's a single unit franchisee, or that's none of that stuff matters. You're just the guy who's good at cornhole or who sucks at cornhole. And that it is really, I think, about breaking away from these perceived roles. There's so many things are just these psychological barriers to connection and to empathy that don't need to be there. You walk into work your first day and you see the person sitting there and you assume they know everything. Maybe today's their second day and they're just as new as you are, and you just don't know the ropes. You have this perception that your boss must know more than you because they're your boss, but you just don't know. So I think anything that it's not about going out for bowling night because it's goofy or blowing off steam. It's just about finding a way to, I think, connect with something that's totally different. And I'd say just pick anything. Like, don't try to be clever. Don't don't get a book that tells you, to build something out of Lego and that it's a specific challenge. Like, don't like search for something that someone else has done. Don't try to be too purposeful about it. Be stupid about it. Like, just go to the park and feed some ducks. I'm looking out my window and there's a bunch of ducks swimming up. Just like, let's go get some cracked corn and go out and feed some ducks and just let it rip. Just I guarantee you won't be the same team anymore once you've fed the ducks, and fill in the blank. It could be literally anything.
Yeah, it's so important. Like you mentioned just how, like, because we're even more remote now than ever. And so we don't have these weird, silly little exchanges and things like that, right? We're just hopping onto the Zoom and we're trying to get down to business all the time. So it's really important, I think, to create that intention, in your business. And speaking of that, so how do you scale kind of culture across all these different locations to kind of build some of that?
I think the key thing is you can never rely on platitudes or like atta-girls or encouragement. It has to be substantive. The reality is that every franchisee is an independent business owner. This is their business. This is their livelihood. And the way you scale something is by speaking the language of concrete, meaningful action. It means like having the real scaffolding there, saying like, here is not a metaphoric, but a literal playbook. Like, we have a new curriculum. Here's the guide. Here's the video that shows you how to do it. Here's the troubleshooting. Here's the phone number you can call if you have any problems with it. Oh, and we're going to check in a week, and we're going to come out for a visit. So whatever it is, that there has to be substance behind it. And I think it's almost the opposite of my throwing corn to the duck example. It's no corn, no ducks. It's just business. It's like having that very, very, very concrete gird that's there, because when you feel stress, I have to find the way to take it away is to help you level set and see what everyone else is going through, what their journey is, where you are in your stage of business, your trajectory, and what levers you have to pull to change the course that you're on.
Yeah, it's not an uncommon experience that they may be going through. Mark, we mentioned some of these principles that you're talking about can be expanded way beyond pets. So I'm really kind of curious, what might be some of those other industries to apply these principles to, in your view, that connection essentially helps drive the growth. I mean, is there any limit to?
I can't think of. I mean, the only things I can think of is like someone sitting in a attic writing a novel. Right. If you're completely solo, I don't know what you do, but very few of us are monks, and I can't think where it doesn't help. Yeah. And we can always benefit from relying on others and asking others for help, and having more humility in what we do and being better at communicating with others. Having, if not less ego, just an awareness of our own egos and knowing to recognize it when it's there. These things will help everybody in every aspect of your life. I don't make a big, just like, I did not understand the TV show Severance. Like, it's all the same stuff. Like, it's not, you don't need two brains. It's you're you when you go to the grocery store, you go home to your family, you go to work, you can keep the same principles everywhere.
Yeah. I think what's so powerful about that too is, every other industry involves humans. And it sounds like from what you're doing is you're helping the humans, first, and then as well, the pets. The pets are probably the ones that are less resistant to the training, right? It's probably the humans that are involved that require a little bit more work.
I mean, we have more 5-star reviews by far than any other dog training business, and it's really easy to do. I mean, the fact is, like, the humans, instead of coming in and going like sit, stay, wait, like they're playing really, really fun games the whole time. The dogs are sitting there getting treats and getting petted and getting like undivided attention from their owner for an hour. So everyone's having a blast. It's super fun. And just by virtue of showing up and spending that time with your dog and giving that kind of attention, You learn your dog better, your dog learns. You go home, I guarantee you, you will have a better relationship with your dog. And that's like if we just, spoke in gobbledygook the whole time. I'm not saying we speak in gobbledygook and we don't say things of value, but I'm saying literally just showing up and being there. And that, before Zoom Room, one of my earlier experiences was developing a lot of the after-school programs for the Boys and Girls Club of America. And so that was caregivers and kids. And when we would do tons of metrics and study that, and way beyond anything that was in the quality of the work we were doing, the thing that tracked most with successful outcomes was literally just the time that the caregiver spent in the room with the kid, doing whatever, unpacking toothbrushes. It didn't matter. Just all the details fell apart, and it was just time spent, that time that you log. And obviously the sad thing is the scary negative. Like, what if that's not happening? What if you are away from your child? What if you're neglecting your pet? What if you get a puppy, think that's fun, and then you go to work the whole time and leave your puppy home the whole time? Or rescue a dog, same thing. What if you're not putting in any time? Yeah. What outcome do you expect then? And it's the awful negative of that. And that's when you start to see the separation anxiety, and you see all of the acting out and reactivity, and it's to be expected with a child or with an animal.
Yeah, sure.
So, Mark, one question we ask everyone on this show, and I think what you're just talking about transitions well into that, is some form of this: is what role does love play in business?
I think it can play anything. As I said, it's literally central to. I wish I were wearing my shirt today.
Totally.
But it is about creating instantly a signal to everyone that this is a place where we are bringing together people who, have one thing in common, and it is they deeply, deeply love their dog and want something special. They want to learn something new today. They want this dog to be integrated into their lives, and they want to have the freedom to just go about and do everything that makes them and their family, but with their dog with them now as the new member of their family. And so it's everything that involves love in a family is now encompassing this dog, and then giving a literal physical space to it. This isn't like a board and train, or someone comes to your house, or it's out in a park. It's an actual epicenter of the dog loving community in every town where there's a Zoom room. And this epicenter becomes the place where you can convene, you can come together, and you can celebrate. And it's just, there's music, there's doggy donuts freshly baked every day, there's free fair trade coffee, there's disco balls. I challenge you not to smile when you go in there. And the dogs walk in, and there's a giant bar full of lungs and tracheas and things like that. Everyone is so happy. And I think for me, that's the thing I love the most, was when having people who are interested, for example, we once had a guy from Florida come out who was looking to buy a Zoom room, and he just stood outside and watched the customers leave. And he said, I knew I was going to buy one the moment I saw every single person walk out of there with a giant smile on their face. And unless you have an ice cream shop, it's pretty hard to do that. And I feel a lot of gratitude that Zoom room is a place that makes people feel so much joy when they walk out of there. I didn't say walk in. You could walk in a little sad or stressed out because of what just happened and what you're dealing with, but they walk out with a smile.
Thinking about that too, the ripple effect that has in our communities, right? Because we're often so disconnected right now, but me walking my dog in the city or something, I'll often meet a complete stranger, right? And we'll stop or whatever. And now we've suddenly got this common connection where we're suddenly just talk about the dog, right? But bringing all that joy out into the community like you're doing, it can have a huge ripple effect. You mentioned it kind of at the beginning of the show.
Well, I guess, Stephen, you read my secret playbook, because that's really what you figured out, what this really is all about. Because as a human being, what I really care about, yes, of course I love dogs and I love relationship with the dog, but it's about people. And the fact is, for you to be able to be successful with your dog, let's just say walking out your door with your dog on your leash, and not having your dog go not having some retractable leash that's 60 feet long, not letting your dog run off and, annoy someone or whatever, you have to be aware of other people and their feelings and their rights and how what their day is about. You can't just go through life caring only about yourself on your phone, walking around just with the dog here with your head down in the phone the whole time. You actually have to learn to be aware of other people, and you learn manners. You learn how to be a good person in society and to actually think about others' feelings, to realize that when you get in the elevator with the guy who is not in love with your dog, maybe he doesn't like dogs at all, your dog sticking its nose up in his crotch is not making his day. It's actually causing him a lot of misery. And he's on his way to somewhere important. Now there's like your dog's snot all over his pants and he's really scared. And but I think that once you've spent some time in a Zoom room, you realize that's not cool. And your dog won't do that. Your dog will be sitting calmly at your side and polite. And that means that you're someone who actually cares about that guy in the corner. And now we're living in a much nicer world, and I'm much happier. So that's really, to me, if this explodes and goes to everything I dream it can be, that's the world that we help to give birth to.
Love it.
Yep, absolute genius. And a lot of the insights, Mark, that you shared with us today, super hard hitting, right? We could talk about metrics, but as well, a lot of these softer skills that are so critical. So Mark, for those that want to connect a little bit more with you, learn a little bit more about Zoom Room, where would you like them to go?
It says it right there on the Chiron, zoomroom.com.
Zoomroom.com. Check it out.
Mark, thank you for joining us
Zoom
today. Room. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. I really do think, as Mark was talking, there's a lot of just parallels to other businesses in the things he was saying. So please share this with someone who may need it. We need more of this ripple effect out there in the world. And we will see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.